Welcome, Facebook viewers. My name is Brad Bodis. This is our weekly Facebook Live at the Bond and Bodis Law Offices, and we appreciate you joining us once again. This week, we're going to do something just a little bit different. We're very fortunate to have Michael Melfi, who is an attorney that has worked with various startup companies all over the country. Michael's an IP, patent, and trademark attorney, and he's advised people on how to get their own business funded and started up. And this last year has been challenging for all of us. A lot of people were looking for work. Some people have decided to start their own business, thought this was a good time to get started. So we thought we'd talk about how to do that and what some of the challenges are in getting funded. Michael, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it and looking forward to that conversation today.
I think this will really be interesting to our viewers. Just to get started here, to remind our viewers, at the Bond and Bodis Law Offices, we help people with money problems. And we know after this last 14, 15 months, there are a lot of you having trouble. We encourage you, be proactive, reach out for help. Our offices are located throughout Alabama, throughout Mississippi, and at this point, we're offering absolutely free initial consultations with a licensed, experienced attorney. So give us a call, go to our website, reach out. We'll do the consult from the safety of your own home or office. We'll do it like we're meeting today with Michael, or we'll do it by telephone, but we do want to help you. Michael, it's fascinating to me. I started my own law firm 34 years ago now. It was a challenge then, but when I went in, I really didn't know a lot of the things I should have known. You advise people every day. Why don't you give our viewers just a little snippet about your impressive background, how you got where you are now, what you're doing, and some of your experiences?
I appreciate that, and thank you again for having me on here. And people ask what I do, and I tell them I solve problems for entrepreneurs. I'm an outside general counsel to a lot of the clients that I work with. And so when you think about that, I typically get to work with businesses that are growing, that are looking to grow. And I get to talk with them about the things that are going on in their business, where they need help, where they're facing challenges. And most, people who are like some of your listeners here that are listening today, they come and they say, "Hey, Michael, I really need help around one, just identifying where are going to be the roadblocks, where are the risks, where are my liabilities as I go down this road called entrepreneurship or called small business." I think the next thing oftentimes is that, given my background, I'll share a little more in a second. They get to have a partner, and not a partner in the sense that I own it with them, but someone who's going to be along for the journey with them. And I think the last thing is I tend to be pretty transparent with what is this going to look like and what is it going to cost. As you know, and people, you have to tell them, "Hey, it's free to call me," or, "Hey, this is what it's going to look like." And people tend to like that, especially small businesses. And I say most of my small businesses are 1 to 50 million in revenue, or 1 to 50 million in funding, or people who are looking to get to that size. And how I really got here to be in a place that I can be an outside general counsel is, in my career, I've hosted over 1,000 events. I've interacted with over 20,000 entrepreneurs and businesses, and I've personally helped over 600 businesses as clients over the last decade.
Wow.
And so I've had that opportunity to work. I've seen the situations. I've been the entrepreneur who's had those. I've been able and the opportunity to be involved in 28 different businesses in my career. They all weren't successful. Only a third of them were. But I kept trying and kept working through it. And through the iterative process, I learned a lot about not just the entrepreneurial journey, but also the what it means to be an investor to these companies. And then also I've had the opportunity for 2 decades to be the trusted advisor as a lawyer to this ecosystem of what I think are the backbone of America.
I agree. Startup businesses, people going out and taking a risk to start something new, it takes some guts to do that. But people need to be well advised when they move forward. They need to know the rules, and they need to get good advice from someone like you.
Thank you.
Michael, I do like to put a little bit of human touch on this. So where are you from originally? What part of the country, and where did you go to school?
So I'm hailing from the great state of Michigan, and so that's where you're talking today from, in a little town called Plymouth. Sits halfway between Ann Arbor and Detroit. if anyone knows where either one of those are. And so that's where I am. I did my undergraduate degree in Michigan, then I got a JD MBA, and all here in state, and have really enjoyed that. I think those travels took me around the country thereafter. I had a vast network. We had 12 offices across the country, and so I got a chance to really see this amazing country and get to meet these businesses, these entrepreneurs, these founders, these small business owners, and I just fell in love.
Well, we both have Midwest roots. I grew up in the Chicago area. I've lived in Alabama now for most of my life. But we both come from the part of the country where there are warm summers and very cold winters.
There are, and there's an amazing train that runs from Ann Arbor to Chicago. And although you can leave on a plane and get it there at the same time as when you took off, that train ride can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have not been on that ride, but I know people that attended school at Michigan that I grew up with, and I've heard stories. So that's great. For our viewers, the specific topic of today's show is, what does it take to get funding for an idea, for a startup, for a business? And I've kind of outlined where I want to go here, Michael. I want you to first kind of just give an overview of the funding process for somebody that wants a first-time entrepreneur, somebody that wants to either start or grow their business.
Perfect. That's great. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't at least say that when you say you want funding, there are lots of different types of funding. And you may have noticed I've written some books on some of them, one of which is crowdfunding, one of which could be SBA, more traditional lending. Another one could be more angel investors. Another one could be venture capital, and you could have private equity. There's all kinds of ways or places you can get the money from. And so I think I'm going to give a general overview, knowing that depending on what area you would go or what type of funding you would want, it's going to change a little bit. At the end of the day, you're going to have to present yourself. No matter where you go, you're going to have to present yourself, whether that's in a business plan or a pitch deck or a presentation or an application. There's going to be something where you have to describe in such a way who you are, what your business does, what your business model is, how you create value. And so the first part, and I'm sure we'll get more into this, but you got to be able to present yourself and have that in order. The second thing you have to be able to explain is someone is giving you their assets, their resources, which is money in this case.
Sure.
How are you going to create value for them by taking their money? That's an important thing. A lot of people say, I need money so I can do this, or I need money for my business. That's great. How are you going to tell the bank you're going to pay it back? How are you going to tell the investor you're going to get a multiple on their return? How are you going to be able to show that you can increase the enterprise value such that the person who gave you their money, their dollar is now worth more? And so it's important to be able to understand that. And I think we get into more detail, but I think the next one would be how you're going to use the money. So often, you'll say, a lot of people say, I need this much money, $50,000, $100,000, $1 million, $10 million, $50 million. Great. Well, how are you going to use that money? What's it going to physically go to? And one thing that's really interesting, a caveat around that, is people will be like, I need $1 million. And I always say, great. How are you going to use that? And they say, well, I use on this, that, and the other thing. And I don't want to hear that. I want to hear, how are you really going to use it? Because you don't really need $1 million. You may need $1,123,000. And this is exactly how you're going to use it. And the reason you know that is because you went out to get quotes. And so if you notice, I shared with that the ability to mitigate someone's risk is a way to create value. You're trying to tell someone who could put their dollar or their money anywhere, whether it be a loan or equity, they're going to put their money somewhere. Why should they put it with you? Why can you mitigate the risk to ensure that they're going to? And there's no guarantees. You're not guaranteeing it. But how do you remove that risk? And by being able to explain that, I think that's important. And so, we took you through, you have your presentation, you understand how to explain we're talking to investors or we're talking to financial people. There's a love language to it. I used to like to say, right. There's a love language for investors. They have a mindset. And so once you've understood that, then the real work begins, which is actually having the meetings and the conversations and doing the follow-up. And so the fundraising process is a process. No different than someone who's selling. There's a sales process, there's a sales funnel. The fundraising process is very similar in the sense that there's stages you go through that you follow up on, and you have to keep moving forward. And the other thing is it is a funnel. At the end of the day, most people don't go talk to one person, get the fundraising they need, and move on. A lot of people, especially when you're talking about early stage companies, unless they're going to family and friends who they can go to, if they're talking to true investors, you may talk to 100 or 200 investors to raise your money. So that's the process of what I would say in a nutshell. We can dive in any piece that you'd like to more.
Let's start right at the beginning. So I'm an entrepreneur. I have an idea. I want to start up a business. What are I guess, the key legal, should I set up a corporation? Should I set up an LLC? Or do I wait till I have funding before I do that? What are the critical, I guess, elements that you need to take care of upfront?
Perfect. And I'm going to try to skim over anything. If there's anything you want me to dive into, please let me know more.
Sure.
At the most important, they're going to say, hey, do you have an entity? Whether you're an LLC or a corporation, that would depend, and we could talk more about that. But you're going to have an entity set up. They're going to want to see you at least have structured that. They're also going to want to make sure from a legal standpoint, if they're giving money, that you have the right paperwork, the right investor documents or fundraising documents. And that could come in the form of a SAFE, a convertible note. It could be a pure equity play, but you're going to want to have the necessary documents in place. So a lot of times when I initially talk with someone, we'll make sure they understand where they need to go, and we'll start by setting up that entity. We'll typically make sure they have a few other things in place. So if they have a key vendor agreement, the investors are going to want to see you've mitigated the risk by having the right contracts in place with all third parties, including employees and independent contractors, and protecting your IP. All those pieces start to mitigate the risk for the investor. So many times the entrepreneur says, I need to raise money. I'll set up an entity. Give me the fundraising documents. And I say, hold on, that's fine. But when you get to an investor who's serious, they're going to immediately ask you about these things. And did you take the time to do those items? So it's really important that the entity set up. You've looked at least the employment. You've looked at your agreements. You've taken care of your IP at the highest level. I'm not taking you to have a deep dive, but you at least have to be able to address that, so that now we can focus on what you really care about, which is the fundraising. And you're going to need the right fundraising documents for that.
So is it fair to say, and I know in the areas of law that I practice in, it's always best to draft your own documents. I can imagine it would be a risk for an investor to say, I have this idea, can you help me? And by the way, if you'll put together the documents for this business, better to invest a little bit of money, talk to an attorney like yourself, and have those pieces in place first.
Absolutely. And I think it's an important thing is, people will say, hey, I'm going out to raise $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million or $10 million, whatever the dollar amount may be. You can't expect that you're going to spend $0 to do that. Even if you took the investor to lunch, or dinner, it's going to cost you money.
Right.
You got to be prepared to make some investment. And you just got to know what you're getting yourself into, because you're absolutely right. When you start talking about raising capital, you're talking about securities a lot of the time. So there's securities law you got to be just dealing with. And I'm not saying that to scare someone away, but you got to make sure you do it right. You don't want to take money the wrong way. And so there's federal and there's blue sky filings at the state level that you want to make sure are taken care of. The other thing is that raising capital, especially in the emerging markets, I'm leaving out Main Street America. If someone wants to get a lease and open up a service-oriented business or a retail business, maybe a little bit different than this, but for the most part, when it comes to raising money that will eventually be an entity that is angel or venture-backed, there's the National Venture Capital Association, NVCA, does a great job. It's an amalgamation, it's an aggregation of hundreds of minds that are in this area, and we all give input into those documents. Those documents then become like a standard. You're not going to get those documents on a website where you pay $49 and get a form. Nothing wrong with those sites, but for this, you're not going to get that. And so if you're going to go to an investor, you're going to want to make sure that it's done right. And so having someone who understands how to use those documents and how to put a set of documents together for the investors is really important. Now, again, I'll digress for a second and say, if you're going to your family and friends and they all want to give you money because they just believe in you, make sure you have your entity set up. Make sure you have at least the most basic level that everyone understands what the expectations are. Your aunt, your uncle's giving you your money, your mom, your dad, your siblings giving you your money, and what are they getting in return? And what are you exchanging? Your best friend from college is giving you the money. You want to at least the most basic level have that. But the minute you're going to go to a more institutional or sophisticated kind of investor, the expectations are going to level up a little bit usually.
We always tell people we do consumer bankruptcy work. We help people with money problems. We always advise people the best way to make an enemy out of a friend is to ask somebody to co-sign on a loan with you or guarantee an obligation for you. And I'm sure you have the same concerns when you ask a family member or a friend to invest in your business.
Absolutely, because when you think about it, 90% of businesses go out of business in the first 5 years, according to the SBA. And when you look at venture funding, almost 99% of businesses never will become that unicorn. And so you're selling a dream to your family, friends, and there's nothing wrong with that. That are the first people that are going to believe in you, and they may just believe in you because of who you are. But also know you're taking $1. Remember what I said. Everyone hands over $1 to a small business because they're looking to get value, either because they bought something from you that has value, or they're giving it to you as an investment because they're expecting you to create value. And so if you're not creating value, the expectations aren't going to be aligned, and you may end up having some bitter friends and family and relatives down the road.
Right. Yeah, I think if possible, getting funding for a startup business, and we know a lot of people rely on family and friends, but if possible, it's probably better to go to an outside source for a couple of reasons. Number one, so that you don't impact those friendships and relationships. But number two, before you get funding from a source like that, you're going to have to really think through your plan and put things together in order to attract that type of funding. As an aside, I made a note here. You used the term angel investor. That's a term often used, but I think little understood. What is an angel investor? Some good fairy that's just out there that wants to help you, an angel?
That just floats down and helps you. That's exactly what they are. So remember, I keep going back. When you're taking money, people are giving it because they believe in a cause. They want value, even if it's a crowdfunding. They're giving money because it may be a smaller amount. They're expecting something in return. And so it's just a matter of, at that point, if everyone is expecting a return on their resources, it becomes, where do they fall on the risk tolerance level? An angel investor is willing to take the largest risks. Most angel investors, or you'll hear super angel investors out on the West or East Coast, they're willing to put their money in a lot of deals, hundreds of deals, because they know a couple will mature and percolate up and become successful. Most angel investors are willing to take that risk because it has the biggest reward. It is the highest risk investment you can make. That is typically an angel investor. A lot of people will come in, but truly an angel investor, here's the other thing. An angel investor knows there's a big risk. They're not going to need to do the due diligence, let's say, that someone further down the road. They're still going to do their due diligence, but what it takes for them to make an investment, to write that check, is usually a different set of criteria than as it gets later on in the game. And that's just because they're more willing. And there are groups around the country, both at a state, regional, and federal level, that are groups of people who have raised their hands and said, we're willing to be angel investors. We realize that our money is necessary to help get these businesses started. And you can go pitch them. You can go talk to them. And if they're not the right people, they'll point you in the right direction. But I always find it kind of, I chuckle to myself when someone would be like, oh, I just talked to someone and they're in private equity and they're going to help me start my business. Someone who's investing at the private equity level is the exact opposite spectrum. It's almost one step for the public markets. It's not an angel investor. And if you're starting a business, you either want a high net worth individual who believes in you, who's going to write that first check for, or you want an angel investor. That person who's raised their hand and said, I'm willing to look at these early stage companies because not only am I going to give you your money, I'm here to be an advisor. I'm here to be a mentor. And I realize that with my check comes me creating value for you to help grow.
You use the term, I guess, from the perspective of the angel investor. They're willing to take greater risk because they realize there could be greater return. That greater return means it's going to cost a bigger percentage to the business owner. Is that accurate?
I would say you try to get.
I may not ask that question properly. That you're going to pay more for the money if you're going to somebody that's going to take a large risk.
So the bigger the risk, usually the bigger the cost for the money, the more expensive the money is. So they say that's why it's important to get the right professionals around you, whether it be CPAs or attorneys, to help kind of negotiate that. Because it can be, depending on what side you fall into the coin, the investor wants to get as much as they can for as little as investment as they can. They're not doing anything wrong. It's the exact opposite of the angel or the company who wants to protect their cap table to retain as much equity as they can for as long as they can, because you're in a race of raising capital versus selling your equity, and you want to be sitting somewhere down the road with hopefully a majority or somewhere close to 50% of your business after you've taken a bunch of money in. Again, I disclaim that a few, if you're looking at a Main Street America type business or something where you're going to buy it, you're going to pay back, maybe you're just buying inventory with it, the conversation's a little different, but for a business that we're truly looking to scale and ramp up, these comments would apply.
All right. So I want to follow this through. So the first thing, I've got a business idea. The first thing I do is I consult with an attorney, somebody like you. I get the proper business structure set up, whether it be an LLC, a corporation. I get documents in place to approach the potential investors with. And for the Main Street business, that may be just as simple as putting together personal financials for your local banker. Mm-hmm. But you need to have a business plan in place. You need to be able to show those investors what you anticipate your expenses are going to be and what you anticipate the income will be, and then have documents to support that. So we've gone through all of those steps. How do I find these potential investors, and where should I start? Is it best to go to my local bank, or is it better to go to a group of these angel type investors that you talked about?
Yeah, and I would say it depends. I have some clients that have assets, whether it be in the form of a home or whether it be other 401ks or other resources available to them, and they're able to go to a bank and get a loan, typically an SBA loan, to start their business. It's because there's assets behind that loan. The bank's not investing in you; they're giving you a loan based on some assets. If that's not the case, typically someone needs to make sure that they have a group of people that they can go talk to about fundraising. And I would say investors come in all walks and sizes, all genders, all races, everything. It's more about, do people believe in you? Do they believe in your cause? Do they understand your business or industry? Those are reasons why people are going to invest. At the end of the day, if you're going to go raise money, it's important you've probably seen me talk about online, be investable. And what does that mean? It means that when you go talk to someone else, can you demonstrate a series of attributes such that the person you're talking to is willing to and is interested in having you have the resources, right? So you're asking someone to give the resources. So who are these people? These people may come from a local angel group. They may come from family and friends. They may come from industry experts. And so what I tell people, and again, I use that sales funnel. A lot of the analogies I'm going to use aren't too much different. To build a sales funnel, you may have 5 or 6 different ways. You're doing online marketing, you're doing social media, you're doing mailings, you're doing PR, you're doing speaking engagements, you're doing all these kind of things to drive the top of the funnel. So when I would look at someone, I'd say, okay, what industry are you in? Where are there groups that are people who understand what you're doing? And find those groups and start inserting yourself in those groups. Build those relationships. Where are people that truly just invest in businesses? Start inserting yourself at those meetups, or those networking events, or other events. And most major cities have one or multiple things going on. Whether it be you go do a search on Facebook or Eventbrite or any other social media channel or meetups, you're going to find groups where like-minded people are going to meet. It's good to put yourself in there. If you're by a university, or many cities have different types of groups or associations or organizations that will help organizations to raise. The SBA does a great job with it too. My point in sharing that is that it's not one place. You may put the fishing pole into 7 or 8 different ponds to figure out where you're going to get nibbles, and then you can spending more time there. But what it really takes, I always tell people fundraising is a full-time job, and they hate hearing that, but it really is. You have to be committed. You have to be organized about it, and it is a process. And you are going to have to put in some time. The last point I'll say on that is what you'll find is that most people think, okay, I'm going to go ask 10 people and I'm going to raise my money. That's not how the usual story works. And if someone does do that, or someone has overnight success, it wasn't really an overnight success, as you and I both know. They built a relationship with someone for a long period of time. They had been in an industry for a long period of time. They had people who were investors in this space that already knew, liked, and trusted them. So when it came time to say, hey, would you like to write a check? It becomes much easier. And so I don't know if you have a follow-up question or if that answers it.
No, I think you've made some excellent points. Something I feel like I need to chime in here with as an attorney that helps people with money problems. You mentioned earlier that 90% of new businesses fail. That's a staggering percentage, especially to somebody that's thinking about going out and starting up a business. There's a perception amongst a lot of people, all right, well, I'm setting up this corporation or this LLC to protect myself from personal liability. Mm-hmm. What folks don't realize, I think, often is, especially when you're starting up a new business, lenders may look to that entity, but they're also going to want a personal guarantee, or they're going to want you to put up personal property to secure the loan. So it isn't necessarily going to be where you're able to completely protect yourself from liability. All the more important to have an attorney like Michael Melfi to advise you going in, so you understand exactly what the risks are. Right. Such a big step you're taking here.
That's right.
Michael, I want to ask one more question here, and then I want to take a little break, and then we'll have some questions coming in from our viewers here that I want to give you a chance to answer. So I can answer this question, but I want you to answer it. Okay. Why do I need an attorney involved if I'm going to go out and start a business?
It's a great question. So why do you need an attorney involved? I would say at the end of the day, two things. I'm going to give you two answers. One is, you look at any great performing athlete or entertainer, right? They may be on the one performing, they may be the one up there, but there's a team around them that makes that performance possible. To the entrepreneur, to the founder, they're in the limelight, they're the front of the stage, but having a team around them is so important. And the best entrepreneurs, the best founders, and the best business owners will all admit to you it was their team around you. Whether it's a lawyer, you asked about an attorney, I could say accountant, I could say insurance person, I could say a number of other positions. PR agent, whoever it may be, they're all a part of a team that you should be building. It's not about, hey, you need just an attorney. Now, it also happens that each one of them bring a specialty, and with an attorney, we happen to know this specialty called documents and contracts and the law and security filings and intellectual property and all these things that if you don't look at the obstacles, if you don't look at the roadmaps, you could potentially end up losing your business. And in bad situations, you could be personally liable. And so taking the time is so important. I just think that's such an integral part. And I think the second part that I would say to that is not just it's about having a team, but why you want an attorney is because every day when I wake up, I get to do what I do. And I get to serve amazing clients like we're talking about. I know this inside and out. There probably isn't too many fact patterns you're going to talk to me about after 2 decades that I don't know or one of my peers doesn't know. And so in a 15-minute phone call, a 30-minute phone call, and an hour phone call, wouldn't you rather have that solved and have the peace of mind so you can go focus on what's important, what makes you money? And that's just such an integral part that I think some people miss out on. And if I look at those 90% that failed, had they talked to their trusted advisor, their network, maybe that number wouldn't be 90%.
Michael, again, excellent answer. I'm going to give my own answer for our viewers, and I'm going to use it be even more simple than that. If you start a business, folks, it's going to be one of the biggest decisions you make in your lifetime. You're going to make one of the biggest risks, have the potential for some of the best rewards of your lifetime. That's not a place where you want to save money and where you want to cut corners. If you're going to take this type of risk, do it properly. Get advice from somebody like Michael, and his contact information has been across the bottom of our screen here multiple times. Michael's done this for decades. He's advised many, many, many people going through the same thing you're going through. He's seen people that have been successful, and unfortunately seen some people, I'm sure, that have not been successful. If you're going to make this big of a decision, get good advice. And as Michael said, get a good team together. A good CPA, I can tell you, is also extremely important to make sure that your money is tracked and used properly. Michael, I just want to say to any of our viewers that may have joined late, this is the Bond and Botus weekly Facebook Live. We do this show every Wednesday at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, and we try to do, as we've done today, have guests that have knowledge that I think is important for people to know. Michael Melfi is a very successful attorney that's helped people with business startups all across the country. If you know somebody that may not be watching today that could learn from what Michael has shared, remember that these Facebook Live episodes live on our Facebook page and they live on the Bond and Botus website. You can always refer somebody that might benefit from this information back to this video to watch. Not only that, but we've done some other, I think, fascinating Facebook Lives over the last year. Last week, we talked about the fact that student loan debt is going to be coming due again soon. Yeah. We've talked recently about the end of the foreclosure forbearances in our country. You need to be proactive. You need to reach out for help. At the Bond and Botus law offices, we help people that are having money problems, and we've done so for over 30 years. We have offices throughout Alabama and throughout Mississippi. At this point, we are offering absolutely free initial consultations with a licensed and experienced attorney, and we'll do them from the safety and comfort of your own home or office. We'll do them virtually as I'm meeting with Michael today, or we'll do them by telephone, whatever works for you. But reach out before you get into trouble and get some advice. Today, again, we're fortunate to have Michael Melfi, who is a business startup attorney. He helps people get their businesses started, and he's provided some great advice already, but I wanted to give our viewers a chance to ask some questions. And I've had a couple that are already coming in here, Michael, so let's just hit these running if you're good with that.
Fire away, sir.
So the first question is, how much of my own money should I put into my idea before seeking funding?
It's a great question. I'm going to sound like a total lawyer, and it depends. As you know, from a traditional lending standpoint, they like to see anywhere from really 5 to 10 to 10 to 20, not 20%, 25%, depending on the type of asset, if you're going a more traditional banking loan type approach. When you start to think about angel investors, or especially because that's kind of the beginning stage, I think the more the better. I think people also know that you are putting your time and sweat equity in, and so they're not expecting if you needed 100,000 to put all 100,000 in, but they do want to know you have a term of art as kind of skin in the game. So I can't tell you that there's a set amount you have to have. Is it 1%? Well, that's the very least. Is it 50%? Probably not. If you could have a single digit to a teen amount, I think that's ideal. If you could come into an investor and say, hey, I'm raising $500,000 and I put in 50,000, $100,000, that's pretty meaningful. Now I get some people, I say, I don't have that. Okay, well, what other resources are you bringing to the table? Maybe you're going to take a nominal salary as opposed to your full salary for the first year or two. So there's other ways that you can show that you're creating value for the investors. Remember, this is again about creating value for the investors. If your investment is so great that they want all of the investment, they may say don't put any money in, just produce these results.
Right.
Otherwise, they are going to want to see that you have some skin in the game as part of the process.
You talked about a reduced or no salary for a period of time. I've always referred to that as sweat equity. You don't have the money to put in, but you're willing to put yourself and your own work into the project. And for a lot of small startups, that's what it takes. What you reminded me of here, though, and I have 3 children. One of my sons is in direct retail sales. I have a daughter that does mission work, another son that is involved with blockchain and crowdfunding, digital type funding. But I tell all of them, it doesn't matter what your profession is, what you're doing, there are sales involved. I'm helping sell my business today by providing information. You're helping sell what you do. If you're going to start a business, before you even get into operating your own business, if you need funding, you've got to make a sale. You've got to convince either a bank or angel investors or whoever it may be that you got a good product and you've got to sell it to them. And as Michael said, that's going to really depend on the type of business, the type of funding you need. It's one thing to go to a friend or family member and ask for money. It's yet another thing to go to your local bank where they're going to ask for more detailed financials. And it's yet another step if you're going to a group of angel investors where they're going to want to really know the nuts and bolts of what you're doing and how you're going to generate revenue.
And one more thing to that point, sorry, Raz, I'll just say that there's a psychological aspect to it that when you put your own money in something you're doing, you're showing you believe in it, but people all of a sudden operate a lot differently. And there's usually a healthy sense of urgency that gets created because now they got their money on the line alongside you and everyone's evenly aligned on where this needs to go.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Thanks for adding that. All right, so I think you have already answered this next question, but maybe we didn't, maybe we weren't focused enough for this particular viewer. Is there a difference in the type of funding available?
So there is, and I'll break that down two ways. There are different types of funding. We talked about traditional loans, angel investors, venture capital, private equity, high net worth individuals. There's different types. There's also different types of investment. And so the two major ones that most people will talk about is debt or equity. And so a debt instrument, a promissory note, typically a convertible note, is where an investor gives you money expecting a return. And in many cases, if it doesn't get a return, it converts to equity. But it's typically a debt instrument. That's the typical one. So there's some type of debt. The other is equity, which is I'm going to give you X amount of dollars. You're going to give me a certain percentage of your company. I'm breaking it down very basic. It's a little more complicated than that, but it's equity. I'm getting ownership day one for my money. Those are the two main types. There was one more that's a hybrid that I don't want to get too in the weeds about, but there's something called a SAFE, SAFE. And basically the idea behind that is it's future equity. It's a security for future equity. Hey, I want to give you money. Hey, I want to take your money. We don't know what this is going to look like in the future, but let's put some loose terms around it and let's go focus on what's most important. Let's both grow this. And sometime in the future, we'll figure out how to convert my money into equity, but let's not worry about it right now. That's another option that I typically throw in the mix. But those are really the ways that money comes in. It's either being lent and needs to be repaid, or you're going to get a position as an owner and appear on that cap table at some point. And so those are really the two types of ownership.
Got it. All right. That's good. You focused the response there for this viewer. Yep. I think you're going to like this next question. Michael, is going on Shark Tank a solid strategy?
So is going on Shark Tank a solid strategy? If you can get on, it's great. Because whether you get the funding from the sharks or not, the exposure is pretty phenomenal, right? Now, I can tell you from firsthand experience, I've had 3 clients end up on Shark Tank. I've had 2 more that have been going and trying to get on for 2+ years. Wow. It is quite a process to go through and be on Shark Tank. I mean, many of us love the show. It's a great show to watch, whether you're putting it on because it's entertaining, whether the entrepreneur in you loves it, or whether you want to be the one cutting the deal instead of one of the sharks. It's a great show. I can't speak anything bad about it in the sense that if you get on, it's a great way to get funding. If you get on and don't get funding, it's a great way to get exposure. And so, if you are lucky enough to be chosen of one of the limited few that do get on, I would take it if I had the opportunity.
I imagine when you watch Shark Tank, you probably want to advise every single one of those people making their pitch because they've got to make a decision pretty quickly. And I guess what we're seeing there is actually that those people are angel funders. Would that be accurate? I mean, they're going to offer different type.
Yeah, they're definitely coming in. They're coming in as, whether we call them angels or venture money, but they're coming in at an early stage when there's still a lot of risk, when there's, some people call it hair on the deal, when there's still a lot of, we don't know where this is going to end up. In 12 months, it could be out of business. In 12 months, it could be the exact same spot. Or in 12 months, this could have been the money that took them to the next level. And you really don't know. And those, the sharks are really looking there, and they're judging not just the business, they're judging the entrepreneurs, and they're saying, can I bring my resources to this entrepreneur? And with those resources, do they have the attributes? Can they demonstrate they have the attributes for us to go to the next level? I would love the opportunity to consult and coach every one of the companies that go on there, because I love it, that show. But yeah,
I imagine though it's a small view at what you do on a daily basis in some respects. It's a good example for people of what it takes to sell an idea, and what a potential investor is looking at.
I would agree, and I would say that when those companies get to the screen, they've gone through quite a process to get there. They just didn't show up to a line and someone said, "Hey, we like you. We like your 30-second pitch. Get here." That's not usually how those kind of things work. There was a process. That process I talk you through. There's an application you go through. There's an interview process. There's a whole process you go through to ultimately get selected to be on there. And so it's an important thing that when you're fundraising, you have to understand what you're committing to, that it's going to be a process, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take longer than you expect it to. A lot of people will say, how long does it take to raise money? And I'd still tell people it can easily take you 3 to 6 months. That's assuming you have everything ready. From the day you have everything ready, 3 to 6 months. So if it takes you, 3 months to get everything ready, you're talking 6 to 9 months.
Yeah. It's become a lot more complex than it was at one time. We started this conversation. I talked about starting my law practice 30-odd years ago. I wish I had some of your advice at that point. But the days where you can just go out and start a restaurant without any, planning it ahead of time, or hang a shingle as an attorney, they're really for the large part gone. I think that 90% failure percentage that you gave earlier, I would imagine there's a strong connection there. A lot of those failures are people that did not do the type of things you're talking about up front, did not think through how to set up the entity, did not think through what type of documents they needed, or put together that all-important business plan to show not only others, but to demonstrate to themselves how they're going to make money.
Yep.
I talk to so many people that say, "Well, I love this. I know I can get into it and make money," but they don't look at the costs or the expenses.
I would say that one of the biggest, I'm not going to say it's the biggest problems that people will have, is they'll say, "I have a problem. I need this, or this is missing in my neighborhood, or I wish there was this, or why doesn't someone do this?" And then they go survey other people who are like them usually and say, "I was thinking about doing X or building Y." And those people who are all like them say, "Yeah, that's a great idea." Well, if that vantage point is only a small percentage of the population that's going to be necessary, your chances of success go down tremendously. I once heard a professor say that a great idea is not just an idea that solves a problem, but it can solve a problem for a mass amount of people, a mass. And you can do it in such a way that you can sell it for more money than it costs you to produce it or deliver it. And I think so many people miss out on the mass part of it because you have 20 friends that all need a widget. That's not a reason to start a business. And I'm not saying don't chase your passion. Just make sure the market size, the mass, is big enough. Because there's a lot of great products and services out there that don't get the traction because the numbers aren't big enough to get them there.
Excellent point. It's not, the business isn't going to be successful just because you love doing it, and that's an important part. If you're gonna work hard at something, I can tell you, if you're going to start your own business, you're never going to have a tougher boss than you will if you start your own business. But it takes more than passion. You've got to make sure there's a demand for what you have to sell and what you have to provide with your business. All right, so this question is kind of out of the blue here, but I see it asked a lot. Should I incorporate in Delaware if I want to start a business and if I want to get funded? What's the deal with Delaware, Michael?
Yeah, get asked that question a lot. It is a great question, right? So this question typically comes right around the time of should I be an LLC or a corporation? And I typically tell people you always want to talk to your accountant because there's tax implications to whatever you choose here, and whether you do an LLC or a corporation or an S corp or a C corp, there's a tax implication to it. So why Delaware? Delaware has a strong body of law. Especially when it comes to an investor. Remember, investors are trying to mitigate risk. An investor knows what they're going to get because that strong body of law in Delaware. And so an investor knows what a problem is going to potentially look like because there's been multiple situations or multiple businesses that have already had that. Not that other states haven't, but it's kind of the model by which many states will govern themselves. So you'll see that the Delaware codes and the Delaware statutes are mimicked very similarly in other states. And so you'll say, oh, I'm going to go to another state. But at the end of the day, if you're eventually going to go get funding and add-on funding, most angel investors and definitely almost every venture capitalist is going to want you to be a C Corp, partly for tax reasons, in Delaware for legal reasons. And so it's kind of become an industry standard that people just know to go with. It's kind of the gold standard of when you're going to file. Now, you'll talk to different attorneys that will tell you different reasons to go to different states, and they're there. Please don't leave this and say the attorney said I had to do that. But for the vast majority of companies that are looking to get venture funding, a Delaware C Corp is probably the best way to go for all those reasons. The stable body of law that's there, the investors feel more comfortable with it. It's a common kind of universal law that all the lawyers can use, and we all feel comfortable around that same jurisdiction.
An important point here, you've mentioned a couple of times, and I may have myself also, S corporation, C corporation. Why don't you explain to our viewers the difference between an S corporation and a C corporation?
Perfect. And my lawyers told me that I should disclaim that this is not to be construed as accounting or financial advice.
We've had it across the bottom of the screen, so you're protected there.
Perfect. Thank you. And at the end of the day, when you're looking at an S corp, I would say, generally speaking, and blanking kind of strokes, that's typically more beneficial for the founders earlier on. How you're able to utilize losses and expenses that would happen early on. That is a good way with an S corp. Whereas when you get to a C corp, there's going to be a double taxation. There's a taxation at the corporation level and then at the shareholder level. And so there's going to be more taxes. There's more formality when you get to the C corp as opposed to the S corp. And ultimately, what you're going to find is depending on what type of business you're in, and really what type of investors you have, they're going to depend on whether you want to make either one of those elections, which, as I said, it's so important to talk to a CPA as part of this process. And it's important that you do it timely because some of the tax code does have time limits to which you can file certain elections. And so making sure you talk to someone, again, to your point, if you're going to make one of the biggest decisions of your life, would you rather not get the right team around you, spend a little money, get the right questions asked, and get it done right the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. S corporation in particular, and again, I'm not giving financial advice here. This isn't my area of expertise, but I do know but a C corporation and an S corporation are essentially set up from the beginning the same way. You file articles of incorporation or a similar document based upon the state you're in. The S corporation election is a form that's filed with the Internal Revenue Service. You're telling the IRS how you want your business to be taxed going forward.
That's correct.
Advice of a CPA is so important with that decision, as well as a professional like Michael, of course. So, Michael, I've got a question here. A person wants to know the best way to contact you, and we've provided your contact information on the screen here.
Yeah.
I want to refine this question a little bit. At what point do I need an attorney like Michael? Do I need, if I'm going to start my own law practice in Birmingham, Alabama, or if I'm going to open up a small restaurant in Jackson, Mississippi, do I need Michael for something like that? Or is it going to be usually something a little bit more significant or larger? Give us some direction.
Yeah. So I'd say when's the right time to call the attorney? Now, yesterday. And here's why. The first call doesn't cost you anything. To ask some questions doesn't cost anything. Being part of the entrepreneur ecosystem, professionals like me are here to help. We know there's going to be questions. If it turns into business, if it turns into a new client, that's great. But you should always ask the question. I find myself involved in various office hours, and I support certain hotlines and do a lot to create value, because at the end of the day, remember what I shared with you is that creating value is the most important. If I can answer that question for you today, my hope is that I created enough value that when you are ready, you're going to call me back. So personally, when should you call me? As soon as you have a question. You know, now that being said, I have to put my legal disclaimer. At some point, it turns into you have to be engaged as a client if you want to have substantive legal advice. But for a fact-based question, we can always answer those questions for you. But I think just, to get a hold of me, the information's on the screen. That's my office number. There's my email address as well. You can always go to my firm's website, taylorenglish.com, and learn more about us and about the team that I have working with, and the great team I get to operate with every day. And, I'm active on social media channels. LinkedIn's probably the most active. So always welcome the connection there as well.
Great. So you heard it. Michael is a very successful, very accomplished attorney, but he's offering you the opportunity to reach out to him today. If you have questions about starting a business, about bringing in some venture capital, these type of issues, reach out to Michael. He's one of the best in the country, folks. I wouldn't have him on this Facebook Live if I couldn't tell you that. So reach out to Michael. Michael, we are getting close to the end of the hour, and I want to warn you, I'm going to talk about our law firm a little bit, but I always like to finish by asking you a question about anything I may have missed. So be thinking about that while I'm telling our viewers. Please remember, we do these Facebook Live events every week, every Wednesday at 1:00 p.m. Central Standard Time. We like to have, and we have had, interesting guests each week. Michael Melfi this week is an attorney that practices in the area of business startups, investors, bringing in funding for a business idea. If you know somebody that may be interested in starting or growing a business, refer them back to this Facebook page or to our firm's website. This video will live there. Excellent advice has been provided by Michael today. Please refer people back to this page. The Bond and Bodas law offices are located throughout Alabama and Mississippi, and we help people with money problems. And we know a lot of you are having money problems. I will give you the exact same advice Michael just did about if you want to start a business, reach out, talk to an attorney now. If you are beginning to have financial problems, reach out for advice before things get bad, before you may be facing a foreclosure or a wage garnishment or a repossession. We're offering at this point absolutely free initial consultations with a licensed, experienced attorney. We'll do them by phone or video. We'll do them from the comfort, safety of your own home or office. So call the number on your screen, go to our website. We'll set up a consultation and we'll talk you through your problems. No obligation. I just want you to know we're available if we can help you. So please reach out. Again, we do these Facebook Live episodes every week. Michael Melfi has been very kind to join me today. Michael, I am sure I've missed a ton of information, but we only had an hour today. You've provided so much already. What have I missed? What's the important thing that we may not have talked about that somebody looking to start or grow a business, somebody looking for funding needs to know?
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna piggyback on two things we talked about. This is one of the bigger, if not biggest, decisions someone's going to make in their life. Take the time to get expert advice. Take the time to speak to someone. As you said, don't wait till it's too late. I think that's such an important thing. If I could just hammer that home, it's a phone call. It's a 15-minute phone call. It's worth the time. It's worth taking the effort to do a little more research. Remember, we talked about some of the reasons those 90% of businesses fail is they didn't really do the right research. Take the time to do the research to make sure before you go down this journey. That's probably the most important thing that I could say. I think from a legal standpoint, I would say that legal is no different than accounting, is no different than anything else in your business. Over time, it's going to be a line item. It's going to be a budget. I can't tell you how many small businesses that I'll say, well, do you have anything budgeted for your legal? And they'll say, no. I'll say, well, do you have anything budgeted for your accounting? And they'll say, no. I say, well, that's an integral part of growing your business. Do you think successful organizations don't have a budget for that, no matter it may be $500 a year. I don't care what it is. Hopefully it's more than $500 a year, but it's some amount of money you have that's going to help you grow. If you want to grow to be a $500,000, $1 million, or a $10 million, or a $100 million company, some portion of that you need to be investing in your legal and your accounting foundation, your processes, your systems to grow your business. And so I think that's an important part is to think about is that while it may be small initially, over time, you need to be budgeting for your professional services that you have in your business. That's an important thing. And I think the last part that I would say is I'd want to reiterate that when you are looking to start a business, when you're looking to raise capital, there's 3 sales you have to go make every day. The first sale you have to make is to the customers. What is the product or service that they're going to buy from you? The second sale you have to make is potentially to the investors or where you're getting your resources or your line of credit or your lending from, someone who's giving you the resources to grow your business. And the third one is internal. It's your partners, it's your team members, it's your employees. And every day as an entrepreneur, you're waking up to serve those 3 groups and create value for them. And those 3 groups are all going to have different needs and problems. And a lot of times that's where a lawyer can come in, is to assist you in navigating those 3 distinct relationships and the legal documents necessary to manage those 3 relationships. And if you can just remember that every day you step into your office or you step into your place of business, those 3 groups have to be served. A lawyer can help with that. That's something I can help with and bring value to.
Wonderful, wonderful advice, Michael. In closing, I just want to tell our viewers, starting a business is one of the most exciting and most rewarding things you can do in your lifetime. It's also one of the most risky things you can do in your lifetime. So if you're going to do it, make the proper investment, do your due diligence, talk to an expert like Michael before you put your foot into it, because again, it's a significant risk. You know, Michael, I always, if we were to tie our 2 practices together, I've always told people that a free enterprise type system like we have in our country would not exist if bankruptcy laws didn't exist. Because there's so much risk, many people wouldn't be able to go out and take the risk involved with starting their own business if that bankruptcy safety net didn't exist. People have such negative stereotypes about somebody that seeks bankruptcy protection. But most of the people we consult with on a daily basis are people that have maybe taken a risk, gone out and tried to start a business. It didn't work this time, but they need a fresh start so they can get ready to start anew and learn from the mistakes they made. It maybe somebody that's gone through a bad marital situation, had medical problems. Good people need advice. Don't stick your head in the sand if you're having money problems. Reach out for help. If you want to start a business, reach out to Michael Melfi. He's one of the best in the country.
Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure. And I want to thank all of our Facebook viewers for joining us. On behalf of Michael, on behalf of myself, everyone at Bond & Bodes Law Offices, good luck, God bless, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks so very much. Have a great day.
You too.